Okay. Does it work? Is it on? Can you hear? Okay. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. When I started to think about what I was going to say tonight and how we were going to kind of start the evening and kick off the evening, my eyes fell on Rabbi Sachs's book, Celebrating Life. And as you know, in Jeremy's last year or 2 years, he became a big book collector. Everybody that came to visit him brought books, and Jeremy was always with a book. And so we have the Rabbi Sachs collection on the shelf. And when I looked at the title, Celebrating Life, I thought, oh, that's it. That's not only what I'm going to talk about, but that's actually the theme of the evening. And along with that goes the program that we have for this evening. Natan and his story, which we'll go into a little bit later. Machon Pardes, where Jeremy was in the kollel here for a year. The celebration of life that Jeremy greeted with enthusiasm in every step of the way during his last few years, and actually during his whole life. As you know, the last 2 years that Jeremy was alive, he worked on a few different projects with Leave Note to Leave a Note. He was here at the kollel, and of course he was a very active CTO for a variety of different startups and technology endeavors. And so I want to share with you a few reflections from the book and how I sort of saw Jeremy celebrating life throughout the years. The first lesson in the book is the appreciation of the small stuff. And Jeremy was really great at that. It was actually one of the things that really brought us together because we both kind of had that outlook in life. When we would go on tiyulim with the kids, for him, buckling the kids in with a big hug and a kiss, that was part of the tiyul. And organizing all the music for the trip, that was part of the tiyul. And the menu and the picnics along the way, that was part of the experience. And obviously the destination itself, that was also part of the experience. And everything together, when we would do small trips, big trips, the planning for us was for sure the most celebratory part of the actual departure. And you saw that through all of our trips. I remember somebody once said to me that you can tell a couple that really gets along when they travel, they don't fight. And Jeremy and I never, ever, 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 not once, with all of our travels to all over the world, including for cochlear implant operations, never, ever had a fight. So for him, the appreciation of the small stuff and heading out and enjoying the world was definitely a theme in his life. When we would go to Machane Yehuda to shop, before the 74, 75 was deviated the way it is now, he would walk around and say, look at all the great stuff we have to eat in this country. Look at all the colors, look at all. And one day we were walking in the shuk and this fish that was not quite dead yet jumped on me. I screamed, went into a panic, and he says, Lisa, that fish really likes you. Just appreciate that he likes you. Sorry. Jerry, that one you pushed a little too far. When we were renovating our house, when we were living in Rechavia and we were renovating our house in Talpiot, we obviously did the typical gutting of the whole floors. And we went to visit the site one day, and the floors obviously were not put in, and the room was, the entire living room, kitchen, bathrooms, everything was one big sandbox. And we walked in with the kids, who were then 4 and 2, and their faces lit up because they thought they were going to live in a big sandbox. And Jeremy said to them, guys, look at our new house. We made for you this whole new big sandbox. To which they actually bought into it. Until when we actually moved in, they were kind of bummed. It was hard ceramic floor. They were not happy. The second life lesson that I think Jeremy really took with him when he was celebrating life was to always have a sense of humor. And every Hanukkah we would read Natan's story. You'll meet him in a little while. He's on his way. Of when he lit the Chanukiah with that Mayor Osin, and he had to make the bracha. Every Hanukkah, one of the nights, we would sit and we'd tell the Natan story, and we would reread it every single year. Jeremy's appreciation for sense of humor in people's lives other than his own was really brought into the house. Whether it was Rav Shlomo's stories in the Sukkah, if you remember, many of you came 2 years ago when we had the open house Sukkah till 1 in the morning. So all night, Jeremy was telling Rav Shlomo stories. He told the same ones sometimes over and over again because we had rotating guests, but still, everybody really enjoyed, and the humor of the Rav Shlomo stories is very much a part of his entity. And after his bone marrow transplant, when he was, the Hadassah Superboy, and everybody was bragging about how great he was doing, he decided to do a marathon. And even that he went into also with a sense of humor, and that he actually invited his doctors to compete with him. And he beat quite a few of them, actually. So Jeremy, all along, and I know many of you who have worked with him also have a lot of stories of his sense of humor when he was at Accent Software, and he would have his chavruta during lunch. There was always the light part of the day for Jeremy. And the third lesson from the book of Rabbi Sachs is to live your ideals and principles by teaching by example. And obviously for all of us who knew Jeremy, Jeremy was very much a man of example. Jeremy was always with a book, always, always, always with a book. Whenever we would leave for anything, even to Tule up in the north, we were going hiking, he'd take a book. I'm like, Jeremy, we're going on a Tule, honeymoon, took a book. Everywhere, Jeremy always had a book with him. Meals in our home were not just about the food. When he found the book, What's Bothering Rashi, the whole series, What's Bothering Rashi, it was at the table for dinner very, very often when Chaim was very deep in his learning of Parshat HaShavua. Friday afternoon, the technology books would be put away and the Tanakh books would come to the center of the table. If you looked in Jeremy's backpack any day of the week, at any time, he always had books in there, whether it was Limudei Kodesh or otherwise. Jeremy was always with a book. In the last few years of his life, he was doing Daf Yomi. And Jeremy loved Daf Yomi for a lot of reasons. First of all, because it gave him something in a Mizgeret every day. But when we would travel, he would find, obviously, the Dafis, he used to call them. And when we were flying back from Switzerland, we get on the plane, and sure enough, there's a guy sitting across the aisle from us, Daf Yomi. So, of course, he positioned his seat that he could sit with him, and they could do Daf Yomi. When he went and he started radiation treatment, he comes back the first day. I'm like, I wanted to go with him. He said, no, I'll go by myself. I'm feeling okay. Whenever he wanted to go by himself, I always let him, because I didn't want to be like the too overbearing wife, which you know I could have done. He comes back the first day, and his whole face is like all lit up. I'm like, what happened? He goes, I got a Daf Yomi, chavruta, in radiology, and we have saved, and we organized our schedule to be there together. Like, who does that? Who? So we would always like prepare the night before, so he'd be ready, and he'd have the one ready for the next day. And Jeremy loved living his principles in Mizgeret outside of the Jewish community. When he was doing his MBA, and he went off to Chicago with his class, and he was one of two religious people in his class. Hi, Natan. Hello. When he was one of two religious people in his class, most of the class Friday night wanted to go out pubbing and partying, and he said, listen, I'm not doing that. We're going to have Shabbat dinner. Those that want to stay, great. Those that don't. Saturday morning, he went up and got up in the morning, and of course he went to shul, and he scouted out the Chicago shul scene and found, of course, the best Kiddush. And he went to shul, and he had a blast, and he met the leaders in the business community of Chicago. And he told them why he was in Chicago. He was there for the MBA program and described the program and who was with him. And a lot of the people in the synagogue, of course, knew the leader of his program because the Kellogg Rekanati program was already many years in existence and people knew the connection. And then that night he got to the class meeting for the Saturday night, and he went to the director. He says, listen, you have regards from. And he starts naming all the names. And this guy's like, what did you do? And I just saw you yesterday. He goes, I went to shul this morning. I went to the best Kiddush. I met everybody. Everybody was there. So Jeremy always knew how to take every day and really appreciate it. In October of 1985, I was sitting in the Jewish Agency building, 515 Park Avenue, and we get a phone call from Rabbi Avi Weiss. Lisa, listen, I got a favor to ask you. Avi Weiss asked you for a favor, you don't say no. This was the height of the Soviet Jewry movement in America. Ronald Reagan was pushing aggressively for the freedom of Natan and obviously other dissidents and refuseniks. And Rabbi Avi Weiss says, listen, it's Avital's birthday today. And she's sitting outside the Soviet mission on 67th Street. We were on 59th Street. And it was pouring rain. And he says, Lisa, she is there by herself. And I have something to do. I can't go and be with her. I need your help. So we were right around the corner from three very important places in Manhattan: Woolworths, Carvel, and the popcorn store. So I took my team and I divided them up, and I sent one group to Woolworths to buy umbrellas and chad pami and a goofy hat and some like blowing things. And I sent one team to Carvel to buy a cake. And I personally went to popcorn store, as you may well know. And we bought a variety of things for this party, and we walked to the mission, 10 of us, and we called the Hillel at Columbia University, and they met us. And we went and we met Avital in the street. And there she's sitting in the pouring rain, and we threw her a birthday party. Jump ahead 8 to 10 years. I'm leaving B'nai Neoma, a conference, waiting for a cab, and waiting and waiting and waiting, staying next to a woman. I don't really pay attention because I'm busy with my own stuff. And I look over, and it's Avital. I said, Avital. And obviously, when they first came to Israel, I didn't bother them because I didn't know Avital that well, and I knew that they were being bombarded with like the entire world Jewry, so I hadn't spoken to her since Natan was released years and years earlier. And she said to me, I know you. And I reminded her of the story, and she started laughing, of course. She's like, I remember that birthday party in the pouring rain in front of the Soviet mission. So she says, where are you going? I said, I'm waiting for a cab. I got to get to Tapio to pick up my kids. I didn't bring my car here. I got to get my car, but the mother afternoon thing. Yeah. And she said, come, I have a driver coming to pick me up, and I'm going to meet Natan, I'll take you. We're going right to your neighborhood. So we get in the car, and she says, I of course knew about her life, so she wasn't really interested in talking. She wanted to hear about my life, so which was kind of nice. I was talking about my life. So, and that year, Shachar in second grade won second place in the Jerusalem chess tournament. So I, of course, the schwitzing mother was very happy, and who better to schwitz to than Natan Sharansky's wife? So I started telling her about my life, and I made Aliyah, and what I do, and I'm in high tech, and I have 2 kids, and I married this guy, blah, blah, blah. And my kid just won this, as soon as I said the word chess, she was like in another world. And you have to understand, when Shachar first started playing chess, he was 5 years old, and I could play with him from when he was 5 until he was 5 and a half, and then Charlie took over. So in that half year, Shachar played with me, and then he played with Teddy. And Teddy, we called Teddy during those times Natan. And I said, listen, if you can't play with Eva because I'm cooking or I'm doing something, you play with Natan. And then I explained to him who Natan was, and I told him the whole story. So Shachar started playing with Natan. Anyway, he won this chess tournament. I told Avital about it. She says, listen, Shabbat, Shalashudas, please come over to the house, have one of you bring him, and he'll play chess with Natan. So that's when Jeremy started the Shabbat trek to Natan's house with Shachar, who was this little chess player. And from there, our friendship grew. We would run into you on Emek Ephraim, and there were certain times it was very obvious that Jeremy was sick. Natan always greeted him with a smile, always greeted him with the question, how are you doing? Always, always positive. And I will tell you that those positive people, including so many, if not all of you in this room, who encouraged him along the way, really gave him this incredible that led him to really enjoy the years that he did have with us. So, Natan.